Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Bob Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, and we're very happy to have with us once again Scott Ritter. He obviously doesn't need any introduction to Gagglers, so it's great to be with you again, Scott. And obviously, there's a lot going on. As we speak, as we're recording this podcast, there's a meeting taking place in Geneva between the European three, the UK, France, and Germany, and the Iranian foreign minister. And meanwhile, in Washington, President Trump said, I may or may not decide to use force, but whatever I decide or not decide will take place within the next 2 weeks. So we want to know clearly where we are and what are the reasons why Trump may or may not have stepped back, and what are the prospects going forward and in the next few days and next few weeks. So over to you, Scott. A lot of questions.
George always asks the easy questions
Exactly,
first.
the easy questions first, then we'll get the tough ones.
Well, thank God we're starting slow. I mean, I like the crawl, walk, run theory uh, of interaction. Well, let's just start with some fundamentals here. Iran was engaged in diplomacy prior to the Israeli Pearl Harbor, or the Israeli Pearl Harbor event on Iran. So, um, one of the interesting conceptualizations here is the United States saying, we want Iran, to return to negotiations. And I think it's Aragchi who has said, we were in negotiations. You're the ones. And it's collective because President Trump has been using the we uh, word a lot, which means that literally this is an American-Israeli project. This is not an Israeli project. You can't separate the United States from Israel on this one. So it's curious that Steve Witkoff, apparently at the direction of the president, has been trying to reach out to Arakchi, but the Iranians won't take the call. Or if they do take the call, it's a very dismissive, we were there. You're the ones who have bombed us. And it's not just bombing. They killed the negotiating team.
Yeah.
They killed Ali Shamkhani, who was right there. He was the guy. He did an amazing interview 2 days before his assassination, where he laid out what the Iranians were willing to do to, resolve this issue around their nuclear program. And was there was no more you could ask them to do within the realm of reality. You can't ask Iran to give up a nuclear enrichment program it is permitted to do under Article 4 of the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty, and which is being thoroughly monitored by the International Atomic Energy Agency. It's ludicrous to come up with this Iran exception that Israel and the United States have been trying to impose on Iran and the world. Um, and so Iran was bending over backwards to do everything necessary to resolve these issues. And it would have succeeded had peace just been given a chance. But Israel isn't in the business of peace right now. Israel's in the business of war. But we'll get to that in a second. The Europeans, I don't believe, were complicit to the extent that the United States was in this Israeli perfidy. And it is perfidy. Um, this was a surprise attack. In the United States, we speak of December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, and we don't celebrate it and say, yay, what a nice day. It's a day of infamy. It's a day where we will forever remember that Imperial Japan stabbed us in the back. I know there's a bunch of revisionist historians out there who say Roosevelt set it up and all. I don't care. From the perspective of the average American citizen, we were enjoying a nice, peaceful Sunday in December 7th, 1941, when the Imperial Japanese fleet bombed our fleet in Pearl Harbor, initiating a world war, at least a world war that initiated American participation in a world war. And that's what Israel did to Iran. It was an act of perfidy, a surprise attack, a violation of international law. Israel hasn't even attempted to make a justification of this attack, citing, preemptive collective self-defense or whatever they want to say, because they can't. It falls apart immediately. It's not a cognizable claim. Iran, on the other hand, has cited Article 51 in its retaliation, and it's 100% a legally cognizable argument. Iran is on the right side of history, on the right side of law here. But I think the Europeans, let's just recognize the following. If this conflict expands in the direction that it could, with the United States participating in attacks against Iran and the Iranians carrying out their promised retaliation, which would be basically not only attacking American bases in the region, but shutting down international energy. I write for a group called Energy Intelligence Group. And basically, IEG, let's just put it this way, every year they run a conference called the Oil and Money Conference. I think they've changed it to Oil, Gas, and Money. And basically, the clientele is the CEOs of every major oil company in the world. This is the energy publication, the energy intelligence publication. There's nothing out there like it. This is what all the CEOs read. They all come together. And so when I get a phone call from the owner and the CEO, my boss, in effect, this morning, just re-emphasizing, because he supports what I'm trying to do here. What I do is independently. It's independent of EIG, but he said you need to keep doing this because the world doesn't have an understanding what's going to happen globally from an energy security standpoint and the economic collapse that will follow. Maybe the Europeans are waking up because they are already in dire straits because of the lunacy of their policies towards Russia, which have created problem upon problem upon problem. But right now they're literally thrown off the ship, treading water with a half-inflated life jacket. A chance of survival, a chance of rescue. If Iran attacks oil production in the region, shuts down the Strait of Hormuz, you've just tied a 5-ton weight around their waist with a chain they can't unlock, and they're going to sink to the bottom of the ocean. It will be the end of the European economy, literally. And they know this. So they are desperate now to engage with Iran and find out how to get a path towards peace. But now we have to bring in the Iranian factor. Iran's been preparing for this day, for this action, for decades. Iran doesn't trust the West. It damn sure doesn't trust Israel. And after 2003, when the United States violated international law to carry out its illegal invasion and occupation of Iraq, there was a lot of concern in Iran and in the region that the United States would follow through on the warning that General Clark gave us that they wanted to take down 7 nations, in the last of which was Iran. The Iranians took this seriously. In 2006, there was briefings going on in the I think the Bush administration at that time about Dick Cheney wanted to attack Iran. And there was active talk about the United States carrying out a strike against Iran. I believe that the timing of the attack, according to Iranian intelligence, was to take place in the month of March. That's a celebration of Nowruz, big holiday there. I might have mispronounced that name, and I apologize. I don't mean to. I'm just a Marine, and I stumble with the language. But the big holiday, this is like they all take 10 days off and they celebrate. The Iranians shut the nation down, went into lockdown, went on full alert because of this attack. And in preparation for the attack, they broke Iran down into 57 different military districts, each one of which was capable of surviving independent of all others. They anticipated a decapitation strike using a nuclear EMP device that would knock out all communications with Tehran. So they planned on no communications, nothing, 57 distinct entities able to survive for 2 years, continue a fight for 2 years by themselves, because they anticipated a military invasion. I will tell you, I went to the School of Advanced Military Studies in Fort Leavenworth at the time, and they were planning for an invasion of Iran through Azerbaijan. Every wall had the map of Azerbaijan. We had American forces, deploying in. They were working out the logistics, how to strike down along the Caspian Sea coast to take Tehran, to do the decapitation, on the belief that if you decapitate Iran, it surrenders. And the Iranians were saying, nah, we got 57 independent military districts that are staffed with patriots, and we'll fight you forever. So Iran's been preparing for this. This is 2005, 2006. We're now at 2020. That's 2 decades, 20 years they've been preparing for this. And they've been also preparing for the reality of modern warfare by building ballistic missiles. And they have built a ballistic missile capability that's second to none. It's in terms of short range, medium range, intermediate range missiles. There's maybe the Chinese can match them. The Russians have the Oreshnik, which is a good weapon. They have a bunch of others, but in terms of the numbers and the sophistication, the Iranian ballistic missile arsenal is unmatched, and it's specifically designed to defeat Israel. Specifically designed. I remember having a conversation with President Raisi when he visited New York in 2023, and I asked him the question about his nuclear program. Are they playing games with trying to create a threshold perception so that there's this perception of nuclear deterrence, or are ballistic missiles their deterrence? And if so, why are they playing games? Why don't they just say, this is our declaratory policy, ballistic missiles? And he said that no, Iran was never going to pursue nuclear weapons. Ballistic missiles was their game. And he said the time will come when the world will know. Well, gosh, that was in September 2023. October came, Hamas attacked, and within a year, or less than a year, I guess, Iranian missiles were hitting Tel Aviv, establishing deterrence. Apparently, the Israelis didn't learn their lesson. Now they are. But the point I'm trying to make is Iran views this conflict in existential terms. They will not allow Israel to walk away from this conflict. Now, Israel may survive physically as a nation state when this is done, although there's a chance it won't. But the Iranians have said, and I'm not making this up, IRGC commanders have said, when this conflict ends, Israel must be in a position where it knows it can never do this again. It can never do this again. It must be punished so badly for what it has done that no Israeli leader would ever consider carrying out such an action against Iran again. That's how you establish deterrence.
Yeah, but Scott, we do have the Samson doctrine. I mean, the Israelis, do you put it past them that they wouldn't, if they got into a state that you're describing, would they use their nuclear deterrent against Iran and others?
Well, the thing about the Samson doctrine or Samson option, it comes from a book, self-same of the same title, written by Seymour Hersh. I have the book autographed by Seymour. I've read it many, many times. Nowhere in there is there an Israeli document called the Samson option. Nowhere in there has the Israeli government committed publicly to something called the Samson option. The Samson option is a theory postulated by people about what the Israelis might be willing to do with their nuclear weapons. But when you compare and contrast the Samson option with what we know, which is the agreement struck between Richard Nixon and Golda Meir back in 1969, I believe, about when America was confronted with the reality of the Israeli nuclear weapon and how that was totally inconsistent with everything we stood for when it came to nuclear nonproliferation. So we cut a deal with the Israelis about, plausible deniability. The Israelis committed to, if we're not going to call them out on nuclear weapons, for them to use nuclear weapons, there is a specific protocol that's in place. That protocol has actually been activated several times. During the Yom Kippur War, Israel initiated the early stages of it. I was part of it back in the Gulf War when in February of, I think early February of 1991, after Iraqi Scuds hit Israel, the Israelis said, we need to intervene to stop this. And the United States said, you can't intervene because that'll disrupt our entire coalition. And the Israelis said, if they hit us with chemical or biological weapons, we will use a nuclear weapon against them. And the United States went, well, you can't say that. And the Israelis said, okay, but look, we're going to initiate the protocol. So they took a Jericho 2 missile out that's armed with a nuclear weapon, and they test launched it. Exactly the mileage from Tel Aviv to Baghdad, but they flew it into the Mediterranean Sea. But they sent a signal to the United States, we're not messing around here. And so the United States then deployed Delta Force, and we did a bunch of other things. Didn't work, but at least we tried to convince the Israelis that we were serious about this. So Israel follows the protocol. I am not worried about the Samson option. I'll tell you why. Because this isn't about Arab armies coming over the wires to occupy Israel. This is about Israel collapsing from within because of a conflict they started through perfidy. Um, I think the Iranians will continue to break Israel's back with ballistic missile launches. There's nothing the Israelis can do to stop it. They're begging for American intervention, but the cost of American intervention will be extraordinarily high. I'll answer the final part of George's question in a second, but I don't fear the Samson option because I don't think it's real. I think the Samson option always has been a psyop put out there by people trying to intimidate. But the reality of Israel's nuclear program is that is firmly controlled by a protocol that exists between the United States and Israel that Israel knows it cannot violate, because if it violates that, they will lose the United States. We will not stand by idly if Israel uses a nuclear weapon haphazardly, without justification, without appropriate provocation. And in this case, it's not it. Israel started this war with a preemptive strike while the United States was in the midst of closing the deal with Iran that would have taken a potential of an Iranian nuclear weapon off the table. Shamkhali said they're ready to sign a treaty. This isn't about believing the fatwa. Barack Obama believed in the fatwa. That's why we did the JCPOA, and the fatwa is real. But there's many people out there saying, no, you can't really trust it.
You're convinced that Trump and the administration were not in on it, that Israel just simply presented the Americans with a fait accompli.
No, I'm not convinced that Trump was in on it from the beginning.
Okay.
This is an American attack on Iran.
Okay.
It's just using an Israeli proxy. No, Trump was in on this from the very start. He was briefed on this back in October and November. He was knowledgeable of it before he became president. After November, he was read in on a continual basis. He knew this was happening. He deliberately began negotiations with the Iranians for the purpose of committing perfidy, to lull them into a false sense of complacency, for the perfect time for Israel to say, we're ready. And then Trump uses the we term all the time. We. And it's not an accident. It's because his mind is conditioned to say this is a joint effort. I'm sure everybody in his cabinet is going, don't say we, boss. Don't say we. No, it's them. Not we. We didn't have anything to do with this. No, but he's saying the truth. We did this. I'll give you another evidence of why I'm convinced this is the case, beyond Trump's brain aneurysms. General Kurilla, the commander of Central Command, has briefed the White House about strike plans. Now, I'm somebody, again, who has been involved in planning and executing a conflict against a nation in the Middle East. And we had to deal with the possibility of deconfliction with Israel. It was a big deal. I mean, there was a period of time where we actually sent people from CENTCOM to Israel to begin the process of active deconfliction. The British SAS, who were operating on the ground in Western Iraq, had to do a stand down and hold positions while it was thought the Israelis were coming in, so that they were in a place where the Israelis would say, this is a no-go zone, don't attack this place, our boys are in here, all that stuff. Deconfliction means you have to tell them everything about what you're doing. You have to share IFF codes. You have to do the whole thing. IF is identify friend or foe, that airplanes squawk, so you know that this is enemy or friend. Deconfliction is real. Trump knew this attack was taking place, knew every aspect of his attack. So did the United States. Kurilla briefed an American strike plan that was designed to be triggered as the Israelis were attacking, which means that the strike plan was coordinated with the Israelis down to the T, that deconfliction had already been built in. Because you can't say we're going to attack Israel and all of a sudden go, oh, well, no, here come 300 Israeli jet aircraft and they got Mossad operatives on the ground and they got drones. And, well, we're just going to go on anyways. No, then it's a bloodbath, blue on blue, all this bad stuff. We knew everything about this plan, and the plan that Kurilla was going to execute was a plan that had already been deconflicted with the Israelis. This is a joint Israeli-American attack plan using purely Israeli proxies. Now Trump is caught up because it's not very well thought through. Everybody knew that the Iranian program cannot be interdicted using military action, short of a massive preemptive strike using maybe 40 tactical nuclear weapons strategically put if you had precise intelligence. Other than that, they haven't done anything to the Iranian nuclear program. I'll just
Mhm.
tell a little war story from my time in Iraq. Again, I was part of the targeting cell that was taking out Iraq's weapons of mass destruction facilities. So I was aware of the complete target deck, and then one of my jobs was, to determine whether or not we had hit the target sufficient to have achieved the operational objectives, destruction, neutralization, whatever. And so each target had a photo of the target, and I was told to look for impact point here, burnout here, etc. And so we'd get the post-strike imagery. I'd look at it and I'd say restrike, or nope, destroyed, or may have been delayed, objective not met, put back in the target deck, feed it back in, and so I had a perception based upon doing that we blew the crap out of the Iraqis. Excuse my language. Again, Marine morning. Sorry, we blew the heck out of them, you know, and so then I got to be a UN weapons inspector, and now I'm going on the ground in Iraq to see the sites that I had been evaluating during the war, and I'm walking through, and I mean, there's the hole, there's the damage, where's the equipment? Wasn't there. The Iraqis had evacuated everything. And then the Iraqis came in and they poured concrete. And when I was told by General Amr Rashid, who was running the WMD programs at the time and was our principal interlocutor, he said, we're really good at pouring concrete. We're really good at pouring concrete. And you guys are pretty good at blowing concrete up. So we will have this continual, little push and shove where you're blowing up concrete, we're pouring concrete, but you ain't getting what you think you're getting, because we've evacuated on. Sure enough, all the stuff that we're supposed to have destroyed had been evacuated and was brought back in, and most of it in functioning order. That was the Iraqis. The Iranians have been preparing for this for 2 decades. They have underground facilities all over Iran that have already been dug out, prepared, ready, humidity, temperature controlled, the whole thing. If you think for a second all the high value, high tech equipment that's used in various aspects of their nuclear program were sitting in that facility waiting to be bombed. I got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. It'll be a good deal. But no, we haven't done anything to them. Moreover, a facility like Ferdo, which is the buried, the enrichment facility that's deep inside a mountain, we don't have a weapon that can touch it. Our GBU 57 massive ordnance penetrator, it falls about 30 meters shy of what's necessary to penetrate this thing. Now they're talking about hitting it in and then hitting again. Look, we've done that before. During the Iraq War, there was this bunker, Amaria shelter. One of the great tragedies of the war. We misidentified it as a command and control facility. It was squawking some communications that were unique to Saddam Hussein's inner circle. It turned out it was just a relay tower on the facility. But what it was actually was a bomb shelter where at nighttime the families from the local community would come in and hide. And we put 2 GBU 28s in there. We came in and we dropped one. It made an entry wound. And we dropped another one right through that hole, and it tore all the way down, blew up. Brilliant. And we killed everybody, hundreds of women and children. One of the great tragedies of the war. But we have the capacity to do that. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that we could put 1, 2, or even 3 GBU 57s into the same hole. But even then, and this is what Trump was briefed the other day, we don't remember. This used to be my job. Level of destruction, outcome. Even if you do that, you're not destroying the Ferdo Hall. The only way you destroy it is to put a B-6112 into that hole. A B-6112 is an American nuclear bunker buster, specifically designed, by the way, for this very target. And now Trump, the White House had to admit, the only way we can destroy Ferdo is to use a nuke, which I've been saying from day one, which everybody knew, all this. So now Trump's coming to the realization that American military intervention isn't going to achieve anything. that you're not going to get rid of the Iranian nuclear program through military intervention. Two, to achieve the operation results you claim you want to achieve, to demonstrate that you did something, you're going to have to use nuclear weapons. That opens up a whole new Pandora's box that we can talk about later, but it will not end well for the world if America starts using, because everybody will start using tactical nuclear weapons. The Russians have, Admiral Crowe, when he was the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff during Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, he has told Larry Wilkerson there was an event where they were briefing potential military options at that time, and they talked about the preemptive use of American tactical nuclear weapons to resolve I think it was a Korean situation. And Crowe was briefed by his people and stood up in the Situation Room and said, understand this. The Russians will not be the first to use tactical nuclear weapons. But if we use tactical nuclear weapons, it's game over, because everybody will start using tactical nuclear, and they will never trust us, because once we use it preemptively, the assumption will be that we will use it preemptively against them as well. So they might as well preempt our preemption. And this is a nightmare. We don't want to do this, boss. Whatever we think we're going to gain from this is going to cause global calamity. And I hope somebody's giving Trump that brief right now to let him know.
Yeah, but
that,
Scott, you've given us such a rich description of what could happen and what might not happen. Is this going to stop Trump's decision to? I mean, I don't want to sound trite, but I mean, the Japanese weren't 100% sure that it would knock the United States out by attacking Pearl Harbor, but they did it anyway.
right.
Okay.
But
I mean, what my point is that you've given all the reasons why it won't succeed, but will that stop them?
did Emperor Hirohito, was he a narcissistic egomaniac who entire world dealt not with the real legitimate security of the world, but how his legacy, his stature as a man with big hands, and all this. What's going to stop Donald Trump isn't the reality. What's going to stop Donald Trump is he's losing his base, that this will be a political calamity for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The first thing is, I think he's now been educated on the economic aspects of this. Uh, and he sort of got a hint with his stupid tariff war with China, where he faced economic calamity in the face and backed down. It wasn't China that backed down. It was Trump that backed down. He just lied about he received a panic phone call from Xi Jinping, and he decided, because Xi Jinping's a nice guy, that he's going to stop the tariff war with the Chinese. And maybe he can come up with a lie here too. I don't care about his lies. I just care
I
about
don't
the
either.
results.
I don't either.
But he is losing his base, and he is not even a year into his presidency, barely over the 100-day mark. And if he goes to war against Iran, he will lose his political base. And that is the end of not only Donald Trump, but of MAGA and of this revolution. But he doesn't care, because, again, Donald Trump, it's hard to ever sit there, and this is my assessment of him. He doesn't care about America as much as he cares about himself. It's all about Donald Trump. And so even if I got up there and briefed him on all the horrible things that'll happen, if he felt that he could come out of this looking like a strong leader, a bold leader, a brave leader, it doesn't matter that 10,000 Americans are coming to him. You think he cares about body bags? He doesn't care about body bags. Do you think he cares about the price of gas? No, not if it makes Donald Trump the king of the world. We all have to pay a price. We have to pay a price to stand up to tyranny. We have to pay a price to stand up to the theocrats in Tehran. This is the price we're willing to pay. I am Donald Trump. I am greater than Franklin Roosevelt. I'm a wartime president. You must worship me. Except MAGA is saying, no, boss. You're the guy that said Barack Obama was the worst president in the world for even considering going to war against Iran. You're the one who told us as you campaigned that you were a man of peace. You were going to get us out of these wars in the Middle East. You weren't going to allow Israel to drag us into these wars. And yet now you're taking intelligence report directly from Israel, disregarding Tulsi Gabbard. He will lose MAGA. And this is what's panicking Donald Trump right now. He has lost his MAGA base.
Yeah, but Scott, you haven't answered the question. Will he give the green light?
No, no,
okay.
Not with this.
So you're saying no. Okay.
I'm saying that
because I mean, his press spokesperson came out. Well, another 2 weeks. I mean, how many more insults are we having to have to endure? Okay. I mean, Where's the national address on television? Where is the national interest? Where's the emergency in all of this? I I hope you're right, but it seems like the lobby, the arms industry, all the other elements that go into all of this, they finally got a guy that might go along. They're not going to let that opportunity
Remember, he
pass.
was supposed to give a national address.
Yeah.
He was scheduled to give the big talk. And that's what that when I heard that, I went, we're in trouble because if the narcissist gets in front of a camera and starts committing to a narrative publicly, he can't back down from that narrative. He's not man enough. He canceled it, not necessarily because of the national security briefing, although I do believe that that people were starting to stand up in his cabinet saying, boss, this is it. But the people opposing it were the political people because he won't invite. Tulsi Gabbard was cut out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wasn't allowed. So it's not the people who know the good, the bad news, the reality of it. The people surrounding him were the loyalists. Hey, boss, we're here for you. 100%. You're the greatest man in the world. What big hands you have. You're wonderful. That's not an artificial tan. That's a sign of your virility and vitality. You're a good man, Donald Trump. You're the greatest man in the world. Hey, boss, if you do this politically, you're destroyed. We're getting phone calls from everybody. You can't do this, boss. So the 2 weeks isn't about national security because you know and I know nothing's going to change in the national security time frame during that period of time. Fact is, it's going to get worse for Israel. I mean,
Yes.
Israel's back is already cracked. It's going to break in 2 weeks. The 2 weeks is about repairing the damage done to his political base. 2 weeks now gets him to say, "I'm the diplomat. I'm not doing it. I'm not rushing into this war." And now they're going to go out and they're going to try and make amends with Tucker Carlson, make amends with Steve Bannon, and win them over to get them on his side. And if he's able to stifle the outcry from the political base in 2 weeks, we don't know what he's going to do. But I
So,
know
so,
Seymour,
so
who I have a lot of respect
so
for,
you
just wrote
think
an
that
article.
is that so? I'm just trying to get a clarity. You think he will go? He will actually embark on military attack on Iran after 2 weeks, or and he's just trying to
Only
get Tucker Carlson and the rest of them on board, or do you think he's just going to try and back down and come to some kind of a deal?
No, I think that Donald Trump has put it in his mind that he is going to be a wartime president who will have solved the world of this big problem. But he has to.
Will it work? I mean,
No, of
I
course it won't work. It won't
well, of
work.
course
It's
it
going to
won't work.
fail. He'll fail abysmally. And so in 2 weeks, hopefully the national security team will remind him that whatever he thinks is going to happen isn't going to happen, and it'll be the end of him politically. But the most important thing is for the Tucker Carlsons, the Steve Bannons, the Candace Owens, and everybody else to hold their ground and say, no, Mr. President, we will not tolerate a war on Iran. And if they hold their ground and the president can't build the political consensus among the MAGA base for this, I don't think we go to war with Iran.
Then what happens then? What would he do then? Would there be some kind of a new JCPOA? What do you think?
Well, I think it's not going to be what he thinks it's going to be. Um, First of all, the Iranians are in the driver's seat. If especially if the United States backs down from getting involved in this war, Iran's now in a very strong position. I believe this war ends as long as we keep Donald Trump out of this war. This war ends with Israel begging for this war to stop. I believe it ends with Netanyahu's collapse politically, and whatever government uh, follows through said he did it, we didn't do it, we want this to end. And I think then it ends with Iran resetting its relationship with the International Atomic Energy Agency and the Security Council of the United Nations. Um, the day of the Iran only exceptions to the NPT is over. Iran's already said we're not doing any of that anymore. We have a safeguards agreement. We'll do the safeguards agreement. I do believe Iran will um, make a bilateral commitment outside of the safeguards agreement, to 3.75% enriched uranium. I believe that all the stuff that Ali Shamkhani was talking about will be happy, but Iran will not allow the IAEA to come in there with an Iran only agenda. That's done. The IAEA has lost the ability to be trusted. Grossi is complicit in this. I will tell you again, as a UN weapons inspector, I know what happens when international teams get on the ground in a country and start inspecting sensitive facilities. I know that there are people embedded in the teams who collect specific data that is then turned into targeting data and turned over to people to bomb, because I have seen my inspection data end up in Central Command and turned into targets on the ground, and it destroys the credibility of the organization. The IAEA has been collecting data for decades on Iran's nuclear programs. That data has been transferred via Grossi to Israel, and via the person that was before Grossi as well. I can tell you, the IAEA was working hand in glove with Israel when I was there. The Israeli ambassador in Vienna was I met with him and the head of the 687 action team. We would meet in cafes as they colluded. I traveled to Israel and met and received documentation from the Israelis about Iraq's nuclear program. I know the collusion that takes place because I was part of the collusion. I was doing it to get intelligence, not to target, but Grossi was doing it to target, to turn the intelligence into target that ended up hitting. So the Iranians will never trust the IAEA again as it's currently configured. There will have to be a resetting of that relationship, and I believe that will be one of the outcomes as well. And I also think that when this is done, Iran will redefine its relationship with Russia and China. Iran made a strategic mistake, or it may not have made a strategic. Iran made a decision in the strategic framework agreement with Russia that was signed on January 17th not to bring Russia in as a military partner. If Iran wins this conflict, then that will turn out to have been a brilliant decision. Because if they did have Russia as a military partner now, Russia would be part of the pressure on Iran to stop the conflict with Israel. I mean, it's just logical. And that would weaken the Iranian hands. Right now, the Iranians are free to break Israel's back, and they have every legal right to break Israel's back. So they're going to break Israel's back. And that's something that Russia, if they were a partner with Iran, couldn't allow to happen, wouldn't allow to happen. So the Iranians are liberated here. But if they can get past this, Israel and the United States are forever threatening to attack, they can move on to Iran is now the linchpin of this grand Eurasian economic experiment that's going to be run between Russia and China and the rest of BRICS to create this Central Asian economic engine. And Iran is central to that. The North-South economic corridor that Russia is negotiating, the new Silk Road that China just completed with the railroad there, all of this is the future. And I think Iran will redefine its relationship and solidify. You know, Raisi had a vision for Iran in BRICS. The Iranian inclusion into BRICS was a Raisi project together with his foreign minister. When he died in May, Iran was prepared to become a major factor in the upcoming October Kazan BRICS summit. When he died, the new president and his new foreign minister team weren't as enthusiastic.
Yeah.
They wanted to take a step back and give the West an opportunity to negotiate and redefine relations. So they were hesitant. So Iran never really jumped into the BRICS game the way they could have, the way they should have. I believe that mistake will be rectified after this victory, that Iran will recognize.
When you asked about you said they will break Israel's back. Would that be through ballistic missiles? They would just keep attacking them. These ballistic missiles, Israel just wouldn't be able to counter them. They just wouldn't have enough interceptors to counter these.
Well, they don't have enough interceptors. I mean, that's I enjoy reading the stories about Israel will run out of interceptors and fill in the blank. I mean, you get different times and all that. It doesn't matter. Israel has all the interceptors they need right now. They can't shoot these missiles down. They haven't been able to shoot these missiles down. The Iranians every day fire a new generation of missiles. They've got several generations yet to unfold. And these are precision-guided missiles with huge destructive capacity. And Israel, with all of its missile defense system, can't touch it. So it doesn't matter if Israel runs out of ballistic missile interceptors. Iran controls the pace of this conflict. Iran is breaking Israel's back now
Scott,
as we speak.
You said earlier your scenario is that they'll be begging for the end of this conflict. Well, there will be costs for that. I mean, what will Iran demand of Israel?
Well, the first thing,
I mean, just stop. Just stop. Just stop
to make it stop.
attacking them.
Well, it's not what they demand of Israel, it's what they've demonstrated to Israel. I think from the Iranian perspective, you see, Iran tried to set deterrence. There's a word I'm using, looking for deterrence parameters. There's the word. It's in there somewhere. Uh, Deterrence parameters. When remember, after the aftermath of the Israeli attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, we got True Promise One, and that was a demonstration of potential. Then after the assassination of Hania in Tehran, we got True Promise Two, and that was again a further demonstration of potential. But what the Iranians were trying to do is say, we can take you out anytime we want to. We don't want to, but we can. Don't attack us. The Israelis continued to violate the red lines, and the IRGC was ready to do True Promise 3 when the current president of Iran said, no, I'm not in favor of that. Um, I don't know what would have happened. I think the Iranians are in a better position today politically, because had they initiated True Promise 3, um, I think it would be murky on who's going to be condemned for starting the conflict. Right today, there's just no doubt about it.
Yeah, because
The Israelis
that would have been seen as the Israeli would have been seen as retaliation. Yeah.
and the United States could very well have gotten involved in that one, because the politics were less murky. But right now, I think what the Iranians are doing right now, because they've said it, it's not that I think I know what they're doing. They've said it. When this ends, Israel will know it can never do this again. We will have made Israel pay such a disproportional price for the crime they committed that they can never do this again. Now, I think that that's a pure objective right there. There's a lot of people saying that the Iranians need to bring Palestine into this and to get a resolution of the Gaza situation. I think that complicates this. That
I
blends
agree.
nuclear
Is
with Gaza. So I
yeah.
don't think the Iranians are going to overplay their hand. I think they're going to redefine their relationship with the IAEA, and I think they're going to have established. This is why they're going to continue, because it's not about a negotiated end. It's when Israel finally yields, Israel knows that it can't beat Iran. It's impossible to beat Iran, and that Iran now has demonstrated the ability to break Israel, and Israel will never, no Israeli politician will ever say this is a good idea.
Why
Let's
why
go
would
get
is
Iran.
yeah, why would Israel and the United States then choose to take on Iran now, particularly as Israel, it's been fighting now for what, almost 2 years now, we're not very successful against Hamas. It's hardly the opportune time to take on Iran, given everything that you've said, the strength in depth that Iran has. Why would they do this?
Netanyahu's in a horrible political state right now. This the Gaza conflict has not gone well for Israel. I know the media out there is spinning it the way they want to spin it, but it has been a huge strategic defeat for Israel. Diplomatically, politically, they are more isolated today globally. They have indictments against the sitting prime minister for genocide and the chief of staff in the world, most of the world. You got to get outside the United States and some European countries, but you get to the rest of the world sees Israel for what it is, a genocidal criminal entity. Um, this is a big problem for Israel, for Netanyahu. So he continues to expand the conflict. He went into Lebanon, and yes, right now he has a political victory because he killed Nasrallah and he got Hezbollah to back down. But the price he paid for that was the depopulation of the north of Israel and the economic harm done to that. The Israeli economy is in a state of virtual collapse even before they went into Iran. Netanyahu has hijacked the state of Israel and is leveraging security issues for his own political relevance. He doesn't want to step down because then he gets arrested for corruption, and he will be convicted because he is a corrupt son of a gun. But there's some other things going on too, national security issues pertaining to the hostages and how he misused intelligence information and lied to the Israeli people. He's in a lot of trouble, and the only way he can emerge from this in his mind is to be seen as the savior of Israel. And the number one threat that he's been articulating against for decades now is Iran. So this is the final card that he's thrown out. This is the final act of desperation. And it happened now because he is a desperate man. The courts had turned against him. The Shin Bet had turned against him. People in the parliament were turning against him. His own coalition was collapsing. He had to do this to survive politically, which means this is a war about Benjamin Netanyahu. Now you say, well, why does the United States go along with this? Because the United States is bought and controlled by Israel. And Netanyahu, he has said the Americans are the most easily manipulated people on the planet. Well, that's true. And Donald Trump took the 100 million from Miriam Adelson. The Congress took the 100 million to disperse to buy this pro-Israeli Congress. We have the most pro-Israeli cabinet imaginable. So when Netanyahu comes in and says we have to do this, we have to do this. Remember, Trump pulled out of the JCPOA because of a Netanyahu briefing. The briefing he gave about, look, we sent our magic Mossad team to Tehran where we magically extricated all these documents. Don't mind that some of these documents actually were in our possession in 2004 when we tried to sell them to you, or 2009. Forget that. Ignore that. Pretend that they're real. Pretend that it really came from
Yeah,
here.
the briefcase of documents. I remember.
Yes. And Donald Trump went, oh yeah, I'm withdrawing from the JCPOA because of that. Even though he was told by all his people, boss said, no, that's not good. Donald Trump is owned by Benjamin Netanyahu psychologically. He doesn't have the courage. My dogs agree. My dogs are saying Trump is a Zionist stooge. They're doubling down on that. They're tripling down on it. Okay, guys, that's enough. But don't get Peter's dog going. we don't want to simultaneous. We don't want a disaster. There's a well-behaved dog. I wish I had well-behaved dogs like that. But the point is that this is a war not about national security.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems that many analysts have in looking at this conflict, is that they're looking at it from a national security standpoint, trying to make it make sense. And it doesn't make any sense
It doesn't make
at
sense.
all. This is about politics. This is about the politics of Netanyahu and the politics of Trump. That's what, unfortunately, is what this conflict is about.
But if Trump, if as you say, Trump decides, hey, I'm going to pay too high a political price going ahead with these attacks on Iran. He backs down, and there's some kind of an agreement that you talked about. Does Trump survive a humiliation? I mean, he's now put it out there. No enrichment, zero enrichment. We're not going to tolerate that. If basically he has to accept enrichment, that's a total humiliation. Not to mention humiliation for Israel. Does Trump survive that?
Well, because his base is as ignorant as the day is long as he couches it in the right way. For instance, I would imagine that this is going to become Netanyahu's fault. I told Bibi not to do this. He's already saying that. I told him not to do this. I said this isn't a good idea. You shouldn't be doing this at all. We should be looking for peace. But Bibi went and did it. And, I had to be there for Bibi. I had to be there for my guy. But, it was just too much. And this is Bibi's fault. This is the thing. It was Bibi who said the Iranian nuclear thing is done. I was trying to help Bibi out with zero enrichment. But, for America, we've got a good deal. We're ready to move on past this. If I was president of the United States, this war would never.
I really look forward to the day where Trump calls up Huckabee. This is your job to explain what happened, okay?
Oh, trust me, he will. He will.
I would just love to see the humiliation of that man. Okay.
When has Donald Trump ever taken responsibility for anything? He always sloughs it off on somebody else. Any failure he has out there is a failure of somebody else. Donald Trump trusted them, but Donald Trump has never had the courage to snap up and say, on me, guys, I made a bad call, bad decision. We're going to live and we're going to work through this thing and we're going to get out of this. But no, this one's on me. Buck stops here at my desk. I'm the president of the United States. I made some bad decisions and we're paying a price. And now we have to work through this. He'll never do that. He's not man enough to do that.
Well, I mean, I'm really glad that you focused first and foremost on the MAGA movement, because that's been something that I've agreed with, because when you have the likes of Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon and others, and Ted Cruz made a complete ass out of himself. That was, you think you've seen enough in life, but to see that kind of level of humiliation, that's really, it puts Trump really on the spot, because what is Israel to Donald Trump?
That's exactly what is it to Donald?
What is he?
a business opportunity. But
Yeah, exactly.
that,
Exactly.
but Ted Cruz. Let me just make this as clear as possible. I wrote an article in which I quoted Anatoly Antonov, and the FBI kicked down my door accusing me of being a Russian agent. Ted Cruz just admitted that he went to Congress 13 years ago to promote the state of Israel, and he has admitted that he has taken millions of dollars. Where's the FBI on this one, pal? I mean, if I said, I mean, I couldn't even say it. But 13 years ago, I made a decision to join the United States Marine Corps so that I could have close, friendly relations with the Russians. And over this time, I have received over $100 million of money from the Russians. And they'd be through the door right now shooting me as a treasonous, traitorous son of a bitch. Excuse me, I can't bad language. I apologize. But here's Ted Cruz admitting straight up, I went to Congress to do the bidding of Israel. Not only that, what motivates me is the book of Genesis. He didn't know it was the book of Genesis, but he now knows it's the book of Genesis. What about what motivates you is the Constitution of the United States of America? What about the thing that defines who we are and where the thing you took an oath to? But no, you went to Congress to serve Israel. And what motivates you is an obscure passage in the Bible, which you have now projected onto Jesus himself. I mean, this shows you the problem we have with Israel
Yeah,
and the United States because
but
it's
Scott,
irrational.
but before all this, like we could take it from the genocide to the present, you could say that and get away with it. There was no pushback, ever any kind of pushback. Now saying that there is pushback, people are questioning it. I mean, what is it? The gray zone calls him Tel Aviv Ted. He got away with it for his entire career, and there was no pushback. Suddenly, there is. Okay, and it's not people like us. It's MAGA. They're the ones that are saying, no, 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 you can't do that. What happens to the Israeli lobby? What happens to AIPAC and all of this? Because they never give up, Scott.
No, they don't. But let me make a reference. You're familiar with Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the movie,
Mhm.
great trilogy. Remember the second movie when the King of Rohan has been taken over by an evil spirit. And he's got the whisperer there, and he's tired, and he's just all confused and whispering, "Yes," and he's listening to that. The moment when Gandalf frees the king, you see the clarity come into mind and all that. That's what's going to happen to America when Israel is defeated and AIPAC's destroyed politically. Without a viable Israel, without an Israel dictating everything, AIPAC is finished. And the clarity will come to America like it will be the most liberating, singularly liberating moment in American history because we will no longer be controlled by this irrational entity where we have to pretend that things aren't. We're pretending that AIPAC isn't an Israeli lobby. We're pretending that Israel didn't buy Congress. We're pretending that Ted Cruz is not a servant of the state of Israel. We're pretending that Israeli and American interests are actually aligned. We're pretending a whole bunch of things because we have AIPAC whispering in our ear and we've been taken over. The defeat of Israel, and one of the reasons why I gloat on this, because I it's just as an American, you never want to see your country controlled by a foreign entity to this extent. I mean, I know we have a special relationship with the British. I know we have special relation with Five Eyes and all this other stuff. But Israel, this isn't a relationship. We have become their mistress, and I don't like being a whore to anybody. So
All right, everybody, for those that didn't see Lord of the Rings, I could give this The Exorcist when the exorcism is
yeah,
completed. Okay.
yeah,
That's a great film. That's a really great.
just the same thing. The liberation that comes from it. Um, But the only way this was going to happen is to destroy the political viability of Israel as an entity. And that's what Iran is doing right now. When Israel is crushed, when Israel is broken, as they will be here, Israel will be in a struggle of survival that they won't survive because Israel will have become uninhabitable for most of that population. People go to Israel for the easy life.
Oh,
These
that's
aren't
Los Angeles in the Middle East.
Yeah,
That's
these aren't the old kibbutzniks who came in and said, we're ready to go into the desert and dig around and farm and make a miracle and do it and work. Yeah, I could respect those people. I may not agree with their politics, but I'm going, hey, they're out there making a miracle in the desert. Okay, hardworking people. The people that go to Israel right now, they don't want to work. They want to sit and do a little IT thing and come up with a concept and write it on a napkin and get $4 million and then go down to the beach and they don't do anything. Life is easy and for a lot of people in Israel. There are hardworking people in Israel. Many of them are Thais, many of them are Filipinos,
there's a
many
lot
of
of
them are
poor
other,
people in Israel. It's a
a
very
lot of
unequal
poor
place.
people in Israel too.
Very unequal
But
place.
but watch this. There's a reason why the Israeli government is banned people from leaving Israel. And that's because if the Israeli borders were open, you'd have a flight of people getting out of Israel.
Well, if you have a yacht, Scott, you're going to Cyprus
30,000
and
people,
Greece.
30,000 people have done that. But if you have airplanes, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Israelis will flee. And the death of Israel comes demographically when you get a significant percentage of Israel, say, call it a third or even a quarter of their population flees. You create a demographic imbalance with the non Israeli population that makes the sustainment of a purely Jewish state impossible. That's the death of Israel. And when that happens, AIPAC goes away. Gandalf expels the Catholic priest, sends the demon out of the body, and we are free, free again. Free at
But the,
last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're
but
free at last.
that's right. But the strange thing is that the grip of Israel, at least on Western elite opinion, on with the Western governments, is as strong now as it's ever been. I mean, even the Europeans, who at least generation or a couple of generations ago used to be critical of Israel. They used to say that they criticized Israeli invasion of Lebanon. They criticized the Israeli attack on the Osirak reactor in
The
Iraq.
settlements, the
The
settlements.
settlements, you used to hear the German governments, French governments, British government used to criticize Israel. Now they just mouth these slogans: Israel has a right to defend itself. Or what we were talking about earlier, Friedrich Merz: oh, Israel is doing our dirty work for us. So the strange thing is, I know exactly what you're saying, but that the grip of Israel is actually stronger now than it's ever been.
Yeah, but
Right,
George,
but has Israel?
after the Civil War, how many people say, "Oh yeah, I was part of the Ku Klux Klan." After the Second World in Germany, "Oh yeah, I was a proud member of the Nazi Party." I mean, people may change very slowly or may never change, but they don't mouth the old rhetoric here. I think I hope, given what Scott said, I hope these people are so humiliated that they will never show their face in public again, like Douglas Murray, okay, and these other people here, where they embarrass themselves by being so obedient to Israel. I hope you're right, Scott. Okay, I
What
hope you're.
happens to a schoolyard bully? Okay, I'm a schoolyard bully. And I mean, I go to, I don't know, I start my school in third grade. I suddenly grow bigger than everybody else. And I dominate the playground. And the teachers are afraid of me too, because they don't want trouble, So from third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, I am just, everybody's doing my thing. I walk in, I'm sixth grade, somebody comes in and I say, clear the grade. And he goes, no, I said, clear it. And the teacher's like, you better clear it. He's going to kick your butt. Nah. Bully comes up and gets his ass handed to him. Bam! The spell is broken. Israel has never been strategically defeated. The concept of the invincibility of Israel has played a lot into
Yeah.
what we're seeing here. That's why we provide them the weapons. We create the perception of military superiority to such an extent that nobody could ever consider defeating Israel. And as long as Israel maintains that, you know, myth of invincibility, it owns people because then you bring in the Holocaust. I'm not denying the Holocaust. I never would deny the Holocaust, but you bring in the Holocaust industry that Norm Finkelstein talks about, which is a reality. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a Holocaust. It means that the pro-Israeli lobbies become expert at manipulating the emotions of the Holocaust to sustain the Israeli state. When you defeat Israel, and suddenly, again, all the fiction goes away, and what you see is a fat, chubby sixth grader that just got his nose broken by some kid that's a little bit harder, a little bit faster, and a lot more meaner than he was. The Iranians right now are in the process of breaking the fat, chubby kid's face. And the fat, chubby kid is not going to be able to hold the thrall over the world like he used to.
Scott, we're almost out of time, and maybe I'm asking this question out of hope, but given as Israel experiences a strategic defeat, will people of goodwill around the world be able to intervene in Gaza?
Oh, I actually think that once Israel is strategically defeated, its Gaza venture is over. Um, and that, one of the things that will come with the strategic defeat of Israel is perhaps, hopefully, the emboldenment of the Arab world, who has been, not only on the sidelines, but complicit in the crimes committed against the people of Gaza. Um, you even with the genocide taking place, we couldn't get the Arabs to stand up to the United States and Israel. Um, but with the strategic defeat of Israel, this is why I don't think Iran needs to make this a condition. I think it becomes part of the redefining of the order of the Middle East that will transpire as Israeli influence diminishes. I think Gaza will become an issue solved by the Middle East nations, the Saudi money, UAE money, Egyptian labor, and I do think that God. I'm not saying that what emerges will be a paradise for the Gazans, because remember, the Arabs don't like the Palestinians, and that's why they've been betraying them. But I do think that Israel will no longer be a factor in Gaza, because Israel will be worrying about holding on to what it has, not trying to take even more. You're going to see a retreat from Israel from Syria, a retreat from Israel may lose the Golan Heights. Israel will definitely be out of Sheba Farms. The Lebanese border will become stable. I think you're going to see a whole realignment of things as Israel starts to collapse on itself. It's only natural. What does your body do when you're injured? It goes in. What is shock? Shock is the blood going to the vital organs as you try to say. Israel is going to go into a survival mode where it's going to retreat in on its vital organs and try to survive, to come out of this alive. Breaking the back of Israel. Look, they just hit the Israeli stock market. They're hitting all the vital infrastructure. When this is done, there won't be power generation capacity. Israel will have $1 trillion reconstruction bill that no one's going to pay. The Israeli economy won't pay for it because there will be no Israeli economy. So I don't think Israel is going to be in a position to dictate terms of anything. I think Israel is going to be told, Gaza is now the problem of Egypt, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. You kindly step away. I think Lebanon comes in and says we are free of the Israeli tyranny. Hezbollah will say, Sheba Farms, we've done our duty, which is to
we're out of
restore.
business. We're out of business. We don't need to be
Now we
here.
become a political party. We're no longer a resistance party. Syria, I don't know what's going to happen to Syria, except you'll get Israeli tanks out of Syria. And then now Jolani's lost his. Jolani only exists to be an Israeli stooge. I mean, he cleared Syrian airspace so his Israeli aircraft could attack Iran. So I think maybe we resolve the Jolani problem. Maybe Turkey now steps in decisively and creates a whole new problem. I think Turkey will take advantage of a diminished Israel to assert itself even more in the region. The Kurds, who knows? They always get screwed in the end. But there will be a redefining, because when you take Israel out of the mix, understand Israel's fingers are in every single act of instability in the region. And when you remove that, it doesn't mean that instability goes away. It just means that instability gets redefined in a way that, we'll have to deal with that. But I think that Israel on Gaza, if Iran succeeds in breaking Israel's back, I think Gaza will be resolved by the Arab world working in concert with the United States, but also heavily influenced by, I think Russia and China diplomatically will step in and try to assert themselves. I think that the defeat of Israel also spells the end of American dominance of diplomatic supremacy in the region. That the Chinese now will step in there because they'll be seen as more stable players. The United States is a force of instability. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that the strategic defeat of Gaza is the solution, or the strategic defeat of Israel leads to the solution of Gaza. the solution of the Israeli problem of Gaza. Gaza still has a whole bunch of Arab problems they got to sort out. Their own internal problems. Does the Palestinian Authority rule? Fatah, Hamas? We haven't solved those issues yet. But the Israeli occupation and the Israeli murdering and genocide will come to an end, I believe.
Well, Scott, this is a really fascinating, um, tour d'horizon and a very hopeful message. I mean, a very hopeful message to end on. Surprisingly hopeful. So,
Yeah,
Unless
but
you're
next
Israeli.
time, let's.
we should add the caveat to get where Scott is hypothesizing. There's going to be still a lot of death and destruction.
Well,
Sure, absolutely. There's a whole bunch of wishful thinking between now and in the outcome. There's a lot of things that can go wrong,
Yeah.
and that's important to point out. That I don't have a crystal ball. I've got this little American eagle that I rub every now and then to try and peer inside to see what the future is, but it's always foggy. And people should understand that we're having an intellectual exercise here where we
Yeah.
do a lot of hypothesizing, a lot of speculation. We tried to make it informed speculation, but please, nobody go out and start buying stocks or making investments based upon
we,
anything
we,
you
we
heard.
don't we definitely don't recommend people to make
Yeah, and,
Yeah,
investments.
and, and, and it's also an exercise in bucking the inevitability of everything. This is always this inevitability that we've been brought up with. And thank you, Scott, for very fresh thinking. Okay, it's a lot of food for thought. Okay,
Exactly.
and remarkably, it's a hopeful one, which is almost non-existent in the discourse right now.
So, Scott, thank you very much, and hope to see you very soon. All the best.
it was funny. I just want to say before you
No.
my wife and I were talking, and she's like, her concern is by me speaking out like this that I become increasingly alienated, that people will just, and I said, I don't care. That's their problem, not my problem. She goes, well, whatever happened to the gaggle? They used to have you on. They used to have you on, and they haven't called you up. See, you've turned them off. And then I told her, I said,
No,
hey,
no, no,
they must
definitely
have
not.
No,
heard you.
just the
They invited
opposite. Tell your wife, Scott's a really big guy, but
I'm not a big guy.
everybody wants a piece. Everybody
Exactly,
wants a piece of Scott, okay? It was
exactly.
our turn, okay?
I,
Everybody
I will
wants a piece.
always go on the gaggle. Always go on the gaggle.
Absolutely. And you're very,
All right,
always
guys.
very welcome. See you very soon. All the
Thanks.
best.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.